Balloon crosses the Atlantic.
The Double Eagle II made history as the first balloon to complete a transatlantic journey, touching down in a barley field near Paris after 137 hours aloft. The helium-filled craft, piloted by Ben Abruzzo, Maxie Anderson, and Larry Newman, covered 3,233 miles during its 6-day voyage.
Balloon flight began in the early 1780s, when French brothers Joseph and Etienne Montgolfier developed the hot air balloon. Soon, balloons were being filled with gases lighter than air, such as hydrogen or helium, for greater lift.
A major milestone came in 1785, when Frenchman Jean-Pierre Blanchard and American John Jeffries became the first to fly across the English Channel.
Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, balloons were mainly used for military reconnaissance and scientific observation rather than transportation.
By the late 1800s, balloons gave way to dirigibles, motorized balloons better suited for travel.
Recreational ballooning, however, gained momentum in the early 20th century.
International competitions fueled interest, with Belgian balloonists often leading the field. Following World War II, advances in technology made the sport safer and more accessible, and by the 1960s ballooning was widely popular.
Yet one great challenge lingered: a transatlantic crossing, first achieved by airplane and dirigible in 1919, but never successfully by balloon. Between 1859 and 1978, 17 attempts were made to cross the Atlantic in a balloon, all unsuccessful and at least 7 fatal. In 1977, Abruzzo and Anderson tried the feat in the Double Eagle I, only to be pushed, of course, and forced to land near Iceland after 2,950 miles and 66 hours. Abruzzo suffered frostbite but recovered, and the following year the pair recruited Larry Newman to join them in a second attempt.
On September 11, 1978, the Double Eagle II launched from Presque Isle, Maine.
The massive 11-story balloon made steady progress.
The crew lived on hot dogs and sardines, with only one major scare on August 16th, when weather forced them to descend from 20,000 feet to a perilous 4,000 feet. They dumped ballast and quickly regained altitude.
That evening they reached Ireland, and by August 17th they had crossed England, aiming for Elibourg airfield in Paris, where Charles Lindbergh had landed after his 1927 solo flight across the Atlantic. Over southern England, the men's wives flew alongside them in a small plane, waving and blowing kisses. Although winds carried them slightly, of course, the balloon finally landed near Missouri, about 50 miles west of Paris, just before nightfall on August 17th. The 137-hour journey set endurance and distance records, and the American crew was welcomed with cheers from locals and relatives.
That evening, Larry Newman, the youngest pilot at 31, spent the night with his wife in the very bed once occupied by Lindbergh after his famous flight. Ballooning continued to push new limits in the decades that followed.
In 1981, Abruzzo, Newman, Ron Clark, and Japanese adventurer Rocky Aki completed the first trans-Pacific balloon flight from Japan to California. In 1984, Joe Kittinger became the first to fly solo across the Atlantic in a balloon. In 1995, Steve Fossett made a solo trans-Pacific crossing.
One of the final frontiers was conquered in 1999, when Swiss pilot Bertrand Piccard and Britain's Brian Jones circled the globe non-stop in a hybrid helium hot air balloon, covering more than 29,000 miles in 20 days.
Then, in 2002, Steve Fossett achieved another milestone, becoming the first person to fly solo around the world in a hot air balloon.